Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy. Up first on satellite imagery here out in the Bering Sea, not a lot going on. We've got a low here dropping south-southwest down toward Nunivak Island. Rather brisk northerly winds, but nothing too terribly strong here coming southward, bringing some chillier air down into the Pribilof Islands, and then definitely some breaks in the clouds as you get down toward Unalaska and Nikolsky on out to the Aleutian chain there. And then we've got this weak band of moisture farther out to the west that's slipping down across Shimmy and Attu, and if any precipitation is falling out of that, it's quite light. Otherwise, we've got a more intense or vigorous system here swinging up to Kodiak Island during the day Saturday, and areas of rain in the cloud shield on up into the southwest interior. Eastward here along the frontal boundary, especially into Prince William Sound and western Prince William Sound, with one band of moisture here kicking out from behind the southeast coast, and then the next one already rolling in right on its heels there, bringing another round of rain, mostly to the central and southern areas, less to the north, getting into some what looks to be sunshine there around Yakutat, up across the eastern Copper River Basin, the Wrangell Mountains to Northway in the 40-mile country. Not a bad day today, and clouds over the greater Fairbanks area, some breaks back here over the Noatak Valley. Otherwise, in the clouds, rain, especially east and south of the Alaska Range. The heaviest is, of course, along the North Gulf Coast into western Prince William Sound, the Kenai Peninsula, and then more showery up here to the north, becoming, again, some sun breaks here over the northern Koyukuk Valley on out to the Noatak Valley and along the northwest coast, and then clouds and areas of light rain and snow showers occurring up there along the Arctic coast. And again, back out here to the west, northwest breezes here, just isolated showers in the cloudiness here, very light, and again, a lot more in the way of possible sunshine here over the southern Bering into the Aleutians, and just solid overcast back to the north. Looking at the forecast for tonight, high pressure basically holds out here over the western southwest Bering, western Aleutians, beginning to recede off a little bit there in the center, and still have one over the Russian Far East, and a northerly gradient there between the higher pressure to the west and the low center that's now lifted up to just west of Cook Inlet here with the southwest interior. Got some rather gusty north and northwest winds swinging around, especially along this trough axis, dropping southward. Another shot of rain for the southwest coast and the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Nunivak Island, on out to about the Pribilofs, and otherwise breezy, scattered showers on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula and on Alaska Island, while we've got this front right along the North Gulf Coast tonight, looking for periods of rain and fog possibly here, becoming more showery over Kodiak late tonight, but rain and fog eastward, Prince William Sound, now back into Yakutat, swinging up there, and then slowly pushing across the Panhandle. So a wet night coming up there, but wind-wise, nothing too bad. A little breezy up here over the interior yet, with east-northeasterlies, 15 to maybe 25 miles per hour, but lighter winds, but more clouds, and possible light snow for the central Arctic coast. Otherwise, still of a mixed nature there, not quite cold enough yet for just a flat-out snow all the way down to sea level across the entire area yet. And then for the forecast for tomorrow, maybe a chilly enough air now by tomorrow with that northeast wind, with this low pulling off to the east there, that maybe snow down to sea level, definitely along the north slope toward the Brooks Range in the form of snow, and probably over the eastern Arctic coast as well. But again, amounts nothing significant at all. And then south of the mountains, partly to mostly sunny, upper Yukon, Koyukuk valleys, right on out toward Kotzebue Sound, Selawik, on up to Kivalina. looking pretty good. Breezy yet through the Chukchi Sea, and the Bering Strait could still see some gusts, maybe up to 35 miles an hour through the strait, possibly St. Lawrence Island, with northerly breezes down and diminishing here. Yet another trough bringing a little bit more moisture in across the St. Paul area. This low now still south of Togiak Bay, about 996 millibar center there. High pressure barely holding on to the map there off to the southwest, but that's going to basically keep the western Bering and Aleutians in a light wind, dry weather pattern here through Sunday and probably a little beyond. But looks like some showers here over the central Bering Sea may drop southward and affect the central Aleutians Sunday evening. Otherwise, low pressure here keeps a chance of showers, mostly cloudy skies over the 40-mile country and eastern interior, and a trough keeps it wet, but it won't be all that wet. Rainfall amounts on Sunday won't be that heavy as they diminish in the afternoon of that storm to the south, mostly just kicking off eastward. And then for Monday, yet another trough still in the vicinity of the Panhandle there. So showers, but diminishing, maybe even ending possibly here in the central areas, but showers or periods of rain up along the North Gulf Coast, along the boundary out to the west to the southwest coastal areas. And just scattered showers now, the isolated conditions there for the interior areas with partly sunny skies possibly. And not too bad up over the north slope precipitation-wise, basically dry. Temperatures in the 30s once again. And speaking of temperatures, the forecast lows for tonight in the 20s here over portions of the eastern north slope to the Brooks Range, otherwise lower to mid 30s out along the Arctic coast to upper 30s here over Kotzebue Sound, lower 40s over much of the southwest interior and the Aleutians or the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians up to the mid 40s. Lower 50s over the southern Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow, just mid to upper 50s, maybe reaching 60 down south there, but mid 50s here to the north Gulf Coast, south central Alaska, 30s up there over the Brooks Range to lower 40s around Arctic Village, and then upper 30s, pretty common there along the Arctic coast. Mid 40s, mid to upper 40s here for the northwest, and lower 50s, lower to mid for the Tanana Valley and the central interior. Into the upper 40s, you head down toward the southwest coast and near 50 for the Alaska Peninsula. And then taking a look at lows forecast for Monday morning, not much of a change from what they'll be Sunday morning, with mid 20s here over the eastern north slope to the Brooks Range, generally holding in the mid 30s there out along the Arctic coast, with lower 40s over the west southwest interior. Same thing for the Aleutians, and actually a little milder out west with forecast lows in the mid to upper 40s. And then we've got lows hanging in the mild mid 50s possibly for the Panhandle. And then for the highs for the afternoon, shaping up like this. Again, not a lot of change here, mid to upper 30s for the North Slope Arctic coastal areas, 40s south of the mountains there, to upper 40s near 50 here in the southwest interior. And then we've got some lower to mid 50s for the North Gulf coastal areas. And on down the Panhandle, about the same, maybe a little bit warmer, with temperatures possibly reaching 60 there over Prince of Wales Island.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Okay, moving into flying weather. Not too bad out here, well, actually up to the north. Much of the interior VFR tomorrow morning, and some marginal VFR central southern Bering Sea down to about the Aleutians here, especially over toward the Alaska Peninsula, but from looks like Adak on west, VFR. Areas of IFR here along the North Gulf Coast, marginal VFR across the Gulf of Alaska, but not too bad up in Cook Inlet and Copper River Basin, and areas of IFR over the Panhandle. For some Sunday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, we've got kind of an area of IFR now on the southern slopes of the central Alaska Range and areas of down the west side, also up along the North Gulf Coast and eastern part of the southeast coast. A much more widespread area IFR in the forecast there along the Arctic coast, on out across the into the ocean, with marginal conditions back down to the Brooks Range. And now we've got some marginal VFR up over the upper Yukon Valley, again developing by tomorrow afternoon. And then for Monday morning, that area holds, but a bigger area of IFR expanding here from the Brooks Range northward all the way out, covering just about all of the eastern Arctic coast, marginal conditions back to the west. Still a hole of VFR here in the western interior out to Norton Sound, but looking a little IFR-ish there over the Seward Peninsula and from Nunivak Island southward across the Pribilofs and the north side of the Alaska Peninsula, as well as, again, the eastern border there, the Panhandle. You'll be seeing the lowest flying conditions as well as the North Gulf Coast. And from there, Monday afternoon, it goes VFR here across the Panhandle, marginal along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound to the Talkeetnas into a swath here across the east central interior, Tanana Valley VFR, right over the Fairbanks area with marginal VFR, Kuskokwim Valley, Alaska Range to northern Bristol Bay. Marginal VFR, much of all of the North Slope and Arctic coast, with the IFR now receding on the east side, and marginal VFR over the Bering Sea. Passes, Anaktuvik marginal becoming VFR, and Adigan, same forecast. Lake Clark and Merrill, though, IFR at times throughout the day. Sunday, rainy. Rainy will be marginal, windy. IFR southern approach, otherwise marginal. Isabel, IFR southern approach, and for Mentasta, marginal, as well as Tanita. And Portage, definitely IFR at times throughout the entire day Sunday. And then for Chilkoot and White, same forecast, IFR. With the freezing levels tomorrow, again, about the same here. Not a lot changed the last couple of days. 2,000 feet down to the Brooks Range at the surface out to the Arctic coast. Kind of a warmer wedge here through the central interior, about 6,000 feet up to 8,000 feet across much of the Panhandle. And then some cooler air aloft out there over the eastern Bering Sea, 2,000 feet. And gradually warming up with the bulk of the warm air staying to the south there. And for icing, shaping up like this for tomorrow, areas of light to very isolated moderate rime or mixed icing, southwest coast to the Alaska Peninsula, and a little bit more heavier stuff in the forecast, meaning could be some considerable moderate rime icing possible here, the northern Panhandle into Prince William Sound, and then some just light isolated moderate back down to the south, above 8,000 feet here over the southern Panhandle, about 6,000 feet in the North Gulf Coast, and above about 4,000 feet here over the Alaska Peninsula, southeast Bering area to the Yukon Delta coast. And from there, we'll move on to and see what the jet stream looks like for tomorrow. And upper level low here, northeast Bristol Bay, kind of a trough up to the northeast to another cold upper low there, southwest of Banks Islands, right over the Mackenzie River Delta. And northerly flow coming down, only at about 50 knots into the Bering Sea, bringing some cooler conditions down. And then southwest, 70 to 90 knots, or 90 falling back to 70 into the Panhandle. And the stronger southwest flow here well to the south, all the way back again, this area south of the Aleutians, 9,000 feet. Northerlies out here, 25 to 40 knots coming down from the Chukchi Sea right across the Pribilofs. Turn to the west there, and then really dropping off once it crosses the peninsula, and just 20 to 25 in the Gulf of Alaska, 5 to 15 over the interior and the Panhandle. 3,000 feet, much the same pattern. Pretty light winds here over the interior, on down the southeast coast. Strongest winds will be found here again in this area between the high and the low with those northerly winds. And turbulence-wise, isolated to moderate chop through the Bering Sea.
NOAA's national marine sanctuaries protect areas of national significance for their exceptional natural beauty and resources. Research and monitoring expeditions provide scientists with valuable knowledge about the biodiversity and ecological integrity of these fragile underwater systems. The knowledge does not come easy. Their mission is challenging and sometimes dangerous, but these risks pale in comparison to the wealth of information that awaits them. This is Expedition Sanctuary Quest. Preparing a research vessel to go to sea is a huge undertaking. Over the course of one day, the empty ship transforms into a high-tech research platform. tons of equipment, provisions, and supplies have to be loaded and stowed. The crew must double-check every last detail. Once at sea, the ship must be entirely self-sufficient. To keep everything running smoothly, the crew charts a cruise plan to coincide with the schedule of research. The goal of this expedition is to assess the health of offshore and nearshore marine ecosystems. The NOAA ship MacArthur will spend 2 months at sea, focusing on all the national marine sanctuaries along the West Coast, from Southern California to Northern Washington. Research takes place around the clock, and as night closes over the sanctuary, a team of special map makers deploy their side-scan sonar. The sonar will provide acoustic information to make detailed maps of the ocean floor. As one set of scientists are finishing up the night shift, another is being called to start their day. Wake-up calls come early, usually before the sun is up. By dawn, Chief Scientist Sarah Fangman is on the bridge, checking the plans for the deployment of the remotely operated vehicle.
Our weather has turned a little bit, and so we're going to have to move to a more protected area where we can work. Well, as long as we're heading in this direction, because the weather is forcing us that way, we'd like to stop.
Once calmer waters are found, the science continues. The remotely operated vehicle crew prepares their machine for its dive. The ROV allows the scientists to penetrate the unexplored depths, which account for 90% of the ocean. There is no idle time. While the ROV is being prepared, another group of scientists takes seawater and surface plankton samples. As the samples are collected, they go straight to the onboard lab, where they are processed and analyzed.
The ROV can stay down many, many hours, whereas divers are limited with supplied air, and we can rotate shifts and go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
The cameras on the ROV are the scientists' eyes into the ocean. These cameras will confirm what the scientists have found through the side-scan sonar mapping. The ROV also allows scientists the opportunity to do species counts and more detailed habitat classification.
Guys, look at the anemones and the corals, cup corals.
Oh yeah.
That is
excellent.
gorgeous.
Excellent. Habitat's changed dramatically.
Yeah.
Oh,
did you
nice
see it just
one.
caught that?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Oh yeah.
A research ship can be a dangerous place with hazards all around. Everyone must be alert to these and know how to deal with emergencies. Fire and evacuation drills are performed without warning at any time of the day or night. As the science work goes on, the ship's crew also works around the clock. Engineers keep the engines operating properly, while the deck officers constantly monitor the ship's location. The deck crew operates all the machinery needed to perform the research, and the galley crew has to be sure all 40 people on board get fed. As night falls again, another shift of scientists begin their work in trawling for plankton.
Half moon out there, so there's quite a bit of light, which will affect how fast and how high these critters come up in the water column.
Okay, watch the slack there, folks.
Okay, got her. Let her go.
One more step in measuring productivity of an area.
Juvenile euphausids, krill, squid, copepods.
After a long, wet night, dawn finally comes. The ship begins a transit to the next area for work. As miles of ocean slide beneath the hull, the observations and data collecting continue. Seabird and marine mammal observers are out working. Bird and whale counts help determine the health of a given area. For 2 months, this grueling schedule of day and night scientific work continues. searching for the understanding that will provide solutions to better manage resources within our national marine sanctuary.
Welcome back. Checking out the marine forecast here. Not too bad here over the southern southeast coast. Pretty light winds, 10 to 15 knots, and then southwest becomes south up to 20 for the north coast. Small craft advisories northern Lynn Canal, otherwise southeast at 20 with 4-foot seas for Stevens Passage on down through Clarence Strait. And moving on to Monday, winds become northwest, 15 knots with 6-foot seas. Lighter up north now, westerlies at just 10 knots with seas at about the same height as to the south there at 6 feet. Lighter winds for northern Lynn Canal down to 15 knots now, and light winds and slight seas with the winds mostly from a northerly direction across the inside waters. Prince William Sound tomorrow, east 20 knots, seas at about 4 feet or so. Small craft advisories though for the North Gulf Coast with those easterly winds at 25, but diminishing here over the western North Gulf Coast down to 15 knots from the southeast. And then you can make out kind of a boundary right through here with westerlies coming in behind at about 20 knots from the Barrens on up across Kachemak Bay. Otherwise, Cook Inlet, kind of a variable wind pattern, south of the Forelands, south at 15, northern Cook Inlet, north at 15. And for Monday, light winds, 10 to 15 knots, south-southwesterlies from Kachemak Bay all the way up into northern Cook Inlet. Light southwest breeze here from the Barren Islands across all of the North Gulf Coast, 10 knots, 5 to 6 foot seas, and light winds from the southeast for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island, small craft advisories tomorrow for sure with westerly winds, both Shelikof Strait, east side of Kodiak there at 25 to 30 knots, seas up to 12 feet. Westerlies at 20 from Sitkinak down to Castle Cape with 6 to 8 foot seas. And for the Bering Sea, we got westerly winds at 25 knots with 9 foot seas, and then turning southwest at 25 with 7 foot seas. For the Monday outlook, northeast at 15, and for Bristol Bay, north become west here across the Alaska Peninsula, but staying light, 15 knots, southeast 15, southwest of Sitkinak. Aleutians, Fox Islands, windiest place tomorrow, but winds only 15 to 25 knots here, especially across Unalaska Island. 20 knots from the northwest back to Adak, and then down to 15 the rest of the way out. For Monday, north to northwest, 20 knots. Fox Islands to north at 15 now for the Adak-Atka area, and north to northwesterlies at the same speed all the way out to Shimei and Attu. For the southwest coast, small craft advisories still in the forecast for tomorrow here. 25 knots south of Nunivak Island. Northwest 25 for the Pribilofs. Up north, we got a zone of 30-knot winds with 8 to 9 foot seas here from St. Matthew Island in toward the Yukon Delta coast, and 25-knot northerlies coming across St. Lawrence Island. For the Monday forecast, small craft advisories here for the northern Bering Sea and the northern southwest coast there. Northeast 20 south of Nunivak Island, turn northerly out toward the Pribilofs. Small craft advisories in over the northern Bering Sea. And then for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, tomorrow looking east-northeast, 15 knots, 4 foot seas, falling back to about 10 knots there on the central coast, but holding that easterly direction, and then picking back up here to 15 on the west side from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, northeast at 20, and then to Cape Thompson down to the Strait. That's where the small craft advisories will be with 25-knot winds. And then on Monday, that pattern holds a couple of days with that wind speed, 20 knots there up to Cape Beaufort, and then north become northwest at 15 knots. Pretty uniform wind pattern and sea heights for the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast up here on Monday. Otherwise, for tonight, recapping the charts here, front moving into the Panhandle, more of a rain than wind producer with occasional rain and fog here, the entire stretch of the coastline from Dixon Entrance westward along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound into the Kenai Peninsula, low lifting northward here, and then a pretty vigorous trough dropping southward to bring another shot of wind and rain with it along the southwest coast out to the Pribilofs. Otherwise, to the north, not too bad, mostly dry, maybe an isolated shower or two over the eastern mountains, maybe some flurries up along the Arctic coast, maybe the North Slope. And for Sunday, about the same type of weather up there, mostly cloudy, some areas of light snow, no significant accumulations, and fair over the interior here with maybe some sunshine, but chance of showers, eastern Tanana Valley and 40-mile country with showers also for the North Gulf Coast and low pressure developing now in Bristol Bay. And the outlook for Monday, showers to the Panhandle. And that's a look at the weather. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
There are many ways to give to the station, but the easiest way is to become a sustaining member. Here's how it works. You set up your debit or credit card to make an automatic contribution every month to support Alaska Public Media. You can choose any amount that works for you, $5 a month or $100 a month. It's a lot easier on your budget because it spreads your support throughout the year. Plus, your membership will always be active, so you'll never have to worry about when it's time to renew. And best of all, you'll be providing a steady stream of support to public broadcasting, ensuring that programs like Nature, the PBS NewsHour, and Masterpiece continue to have a place on the air. It just takes a couple of minutes to set up your sustaining membership. So why wait? Become a sustaining member today at alaskapublic.org or call 800-478-5256.
Often it is art and artists who cross borders way more easily than most.
El arte es